How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome to another Flesh and Blood video here on Red Zone Rogue. Today, we are talking about Lexi, specifically in Commoner, one of my favorite formats in Flesh and Blood. We recently had an Ultimate Pit Fight deck tech video. I figured, you know what, let's accompany that with another format that I absolutely love, Commoner. So this is my Lightning Lexi Commoner deck tech, and you know what pairs really well with a Lexi deck? Lexi sleeves. These sleeves are available on Dragon Shield at the Dragon Shield website or at your local game store if you would like to support me. I actually do have an affiliate link with Dragon Shield in the description down below, so if you use that link, buy any of these sleeves, it goes and supports me, and I greatly appreciate it. Also, these sleeves are just awesome. I have a whole review on all of the current Dragon Shield sleeves. I think they're fantastic, definitely worth picking up, and they look phenomenal. And I know there will be more coming when the next Flesh and Blood set Uprising launches. They're gonna feature some of the new heroes, and I'm really excited for that. So without further ado, let's talk Lexi in Blitz. And before we truly get started, I do want to quickly mention that today's video is brought to you by FAB the premier source for Flesh and Blood deck building and database needs. I will have this deck list in the description down below via FAB. Definitely check them out, and onto the video. All right, so here is our Lightning Lexi deck. I always love talking about Ranger, one, because it's one of my favorite classes in the entire game, if not my favorite class, as well as Lexi being probably my favorite hero. It's a toss-up between Lexi, Azalea, and a couple other heroes. Really love a lot of the characters in this game, but I digress. I just love how Ranger plays. It's so flavorful and so much fun. And here in Commoner, I think you have a little bit more leeway to experiment and have fun with that because, you know, no one has access to legendaries or majestics or even rares for the most part. So decks are a little less powerful, but still quite strong. And we'll talk about that in this deck because this is a go wide deck. So let's talk about Lexi. So Lexi has Essence of Ice and Lightning. We are going heavy into the Lightning. We have a ton of Lightning cards in this deck. She has your standard 4 hand size, 20 life total. And once per turn action of turn a face down card in your arsenal face up. If it's a Lightning card, your next attack this turn gains Go again. If it's an Ice card, create a Frostbite token under target hero's control. Here is a Frostbite token. We will basically never be using the Frostbite tokens unless someone gives us one. Because we're all Lightning. All in on the Lightning, ride the Lightning. So yeah, that's Lexi. The weapon of choice here is going to be Shiver. So I kind of debated whether I wanted to run Death Dealer or Shiver. And the big difference is Death Dealer, you get to draw a card, but Shiver, you get a kind of push guaranteed damage through. And that's something that I really, really like with this deck. You can go wide and string together a bunch of different attacks and then finish it all off with a dominated arrow, which is very potent, especially in Commoner where there's not a ton of really strong defense reactions. You just have the common ones. So you see, I guess Unmovable would be the most difficult. But if you're stringing together a lot of attacks anyway and they're already blocking, you know, using cards out of their hands to block, the chance that they're going to be able to pay for an Unmovable is much slimmer. So I really like Shiver, though I think you could play around a little bit with Death Dealer. Also Shiver, I like it because it also has an instant, like the effect on it is instant. So you can actually do this turn 1 if your opponent is going first. You can block with whatever you want to, and then if you have the resources available, you can arrow, you know, arsenal card with Shiver, and then draw up so you'll have more options on your actual first turn. So yeah, Shiver I really like. Frostbite token, we're gonna eat that. Let's talk about our 11 card, I guess this is including Shiver, our 11 card equipment loadout. Now we have a standard loadout and then some optional ones. So I would say this is our standard loadout, and I just remembered why we have this Frostbite token. We almost never use it, but we could. This is our standard loadout. We run Honing Hood, Bullseye Bracers, Snapdragon Scalers, and Vest of the First Fist. And these 3 cards are usually popped almost all at the same time for really, really strong go-wide turns. Let's talk about the Honing Hood first. So Honing Hood has an instant effect of Destroy It. Return all cards in your arsenal to your hand. Then you can put a card from your hand face down into your arsenal. So this actually enables you to activate Lexi's hero ability if you want to, right? Because it puts the card face down. So you could put a Lightning card face down and then turn it face up for this ability, which is, you know, turn the card, like turn a card face down and your arsenal face up is a lightning card. Your next attack this turn gains go again, so that applies to any attack that we do. So this is a good way to just give something go again if we happen to have a lightning card in our hand. It also makes it so we don't run into situations where we're stuck with something in our arsenal. So there's also that if you really need that card back in your hand to either pitch or for whatever reason. So I really like Honing Hood for Lexi. Next up we have Bullseye Bracers. This is kind of a slam dunk. It has Arcane Barrier 1, which is pretty good against, you know, Rune Blades and maybe some Wizards. But it has action, destroy it. If you have no cards in your arsenal, you can put an arrow from your hand face up into your arsenal. It gets +1 and then go again. So that's really, really good for those really go wide turns. If you play something that has go again, and you don't maybe you don't have the resources for Shiver, maybe you use your Snapdragon Scalers to give an arrow that you already shot go again, then you can pop Bullseye Bracers to put another arrow into your arsenal and then fire it off with a little bonus too. So yeah, I really like the Bullseye Bracers. Snapdragon Scalers are kind of a no-brainer for any go wide lean deck. As a reaction, attack reaction, you can destroy the Snapdragon Scalers to give target attack action with cost 1 or less go again, which is everything in the deck. So really good just for those go wide turns where you just want to go all in. And then finally we have Vest of the First Fist. This card's amazing for go wide turns. Whenever an attack action card you control hits, you can destroy the Vest of the First Fist. If you do, gain 2 resources. Fantastic way to gain resources. You can spend those resources on anything too, which is why I like this over something like the Hardened Cross Strap, because it doesn't just reduce the cost of the next attack by 2. You can use those resources for anything, like your bow, right? So say something like a Ball Lightning hits, you can crack the Vest of the First Fist, and then you can immediately activate Shiver and then fire off an arrow with those 2 resources. So really, really like Vest of the First Fist in a deck like this. I think it's actually fantastic. So here are our other options. I typically don't go for these, which is why I kind of discounted the Frostbite token. So let's talk about them. Let's talk about these 3 first. These are just null rune pieces, right? So if you are going up against a wizard and you think you're gonna get burned out, here you have your full null rune Arcane Barrier set. You have all your null rune pieces plus Bullseye Bracers. Pretty simple. This is where things get a little tricky. I really like some of these cards for different reasons, right? So let's talk about Deep Blue first. Deep Blue versus Vest of the First Fist. So what does Deep Blue do? As an action, you can put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck, destroy Deep Blue, gain 3 resources. So this gives you 3 resources, where Vest gives you 2. However, Deep Blue requires you to get rid of a card from your hand, right? So it basically turns any card in your hand into a blue pitch card. Vest of the First Fist is free resources. It's just like a free energy potion, right? You don't have to have a card in your hand at all. Which is why I like Vest of the First Fist more. You can push more damage through with this card because it doesn't require a card from your hand, where Deep Blue does. Deep Blue is a little more easy to activate in the sense that you don't have to have a attack hit, but we're going wide, so we're gonna probably be doing that anyway. So there's that. Mark of Lightning, first of all, looks amazing in cold foil. Same with the Code of Frost. Shout out to Soyame here. Absolutely brilliant artist. Anyway, so Mark of Lightning is great for just extra damage, especially since we're running Ball Lightnings. And I can see you running this in certain decks, especially if they're really defense heavy decks. You could run something like a Mark of Lightning instead of the Bullseye Bracers, because it's like almost impossible to prevent this damage in Commoner. So instead of whenever a lightning or elemental attack you control is defended by a card from hand, you may destroy Mark of Lightning. If you do, the attack deals 1 damage to the defending hero, right? And they can't block that with defense cards, and they can't prevent it with Arcane Barrier because it's not arcane damage, it's just straight up damage. And when you combine this with Ball Lightning, it actually deals 2 damage, an extra 1 for every Ball Lightning you played. So this is just a good way to deal guaranteed damage. And I think it's really good against decks that like to turtle up, because it ensures that you deal that damage. And then Code of Frost could be great against super hyper aggro decks like Ira, right? So you can destroy the Code of Frost, and then you give your opponent a Frostbite token. So that could help in situations where you think, you know, they're gonna out aggro you and you don't think you can use the Vest as well. I almost never play this, which is why I kind of almost forgot Eddie was even in this deck, but it looks beautiful. It looks beautiful. So yeah, that's kind of the loadout here. Like I said, almost always just go with these ones, right? Almost always. And then there are some cases where you would use these. I almost never side in Code of Frost or Deep Blue, but the Null Rune can get in there occasionally. So with that said, let's move on to the main deck. So we're gonna sort this by a couple different things. Let's just talk about our generic Ranger cards first. We are not running very many of them because we really want to synergize with that lightning strategy, but the ones we're running are pretty good. So we have Fatigue Shot. It's a 1 for 5. We really want to capitalize on these 1 for 5s, and there's not very many elemental ones. And we are running all of the elemental ones that would fit in this deck that are lightning themed. So Fatigue Shot's a 1 for 5, and when it hits a hero, the base attack of their first attack action card they play during their next turn is halved, rounded up, which is really good against Guardian. Some of the strongest decks in this format, this is very, very strong against. So really, really like the Fatigue Shot, especially if you can somehow maybe pump it up and dominate it so it ensures that they deal damage. We'll talk about the pump effects that we have right now. So this one is Overflex. I really, really like Overflex over any other pump effect because it has reload on it. And we are running Shiver, and Shiver can only be activated once. So on these really wide turns or turns we want to shoot 2 arrows off, Overflex is really where it's going to be because it's going to enable us to reload so we can fire off a second arrow. Plus, the red gives it a +4. The next arrow +4, so it's a 1 for 4 is quite good. So we're running the reds. And we're also running the yellows, which is a 1 for 3, and you still get a reload, which is still quite good. And then finally, rounding off our generic Ranger cards is Headshot Blue. This is one of my favorite cards in any Ranger deck. I almost always put Blue Headshot, especially in decks where you put the arrows into the arsenal face up. It's a 1-cost card, blocks for 3, pitches for blue, which is amazing. And it says, if Headshot is put into your arsenal face up, it gains +2 until end of turn, and it already has a base attack too. So this is essentially a 1-cost 5-attack blue pitch arrow with Shiver because you can choose the second mode on Shiver, that +1 instead of the Dominate. So this can be, if you want it to be, a 1-cost 5-attack blue pitch card, which is really good. Or you can just pitch it for blue, or you can block for 3. I think Blue Headshot is like must-have in almost any Ranger deck. I really, really like it. One of my favorite cards. All right, so let's talk about some elemental cards that we want to fuse our lightning cards into. So we are running Frazzle. So Frazzle is another one of those 1-cost 5-attack arrows, blocks for 3, has a lightning fusion, and if you fused it, whenever an attack would deal damage this turn, it instead deals that much +1, which is really good. So it also affects the next one, which it makes it deal an additional point of damage. And so that additional point of damage from something like Buzzbolt would get affected from Frazzle. So it would deal the additional damage from the base attack here, but then it would deal an additional point of damage for the secondary effect, which is great. So yeah, Frazzle is awesome, 1 for 5, and then everything deals an additional point of damage, which is really good. And this is just an attack, not an arrow, so it affects everything. So we're running the reds, and we're also running the yellows, which is 1 for 4 with the same effect. And then we have Buzzbolt, card that I just talked about, similar to Frazzle, but a little different. So it's a 1 for 5 once again, lightning fusion. If it was fused, whenever an attack hits a hero this turn, it deals 1 damage to them. So the it dealing damage means that attack is dealing damage, and Frazzle says whenever the attack deals damage, it deals that much +1. So therefore, it'll deal 2 damage to them instead of 1. So if you can somehow chain a Buzzbolt and Frazzle together, maybe with some other stuff, you're off to the races. You can deal a lot of damage. Really like that. So we are running the red Buzzbolts and the yellow Buzzbolt, same thing, 1 for 4 with that same effect. And then we're also running Dazzling Crescendo. This is a very simple one. It's a 0 for 4. If you fuse it, it has Go Again. So it's good, great for those really, really wide turns, and amazing Sam Yang artwork there. So those are, that's our like suite of cards that we want to fuse. Now, let's show off all of our lightning cards, which is everything else in this deck. They're not all attacks, but they're all lightning cards. So we have a huge chunk of this deck that is lightning. So it's pretty easy to fuse for this deck. And it's also pretty easy to arsenal a card at the end of your turn. And at the start of your turn, you can flip it up using Lexi's hero ability to give your next thing Go Again. So we have a lot of ways to get Go Again in this deck, just inherently. Oh, I'm sorry. Entwine Lightning is not a lightning card. It should have been in the last bunch. It's just a 0 for 4, and if you fuse it, it has Go Again. It's basically the same as Dazzling Crescendo, except Dazzling Crescendo is an arrow. This one is not an arrow, which has, you know, positives and negatives. It only blocks for 2, whereas the Crescendo blocks for 3. And also the Crescendo will get pumped up from effects like your bow and like Overflex, and Twilight doesn't, but it's still a 0 for 4 with Go Again if you fuse it, which you should, and it'll be great. Also, shout out to Emmanuel Acrovius, the artist for this card, and someone I'm working with this year for some, you know, splash art. Stay tuned for that. All right, now let's talk about the lightning cards. We can't talk about lightning cards without talking about Ball Lightning, probably the best lightning card in the entire game. 0 for 3, it doesn't block at all. Whenever a lightning or elemental action card would deal damage this combat chain, instead it deals that much +1. So this is a great card to start with. You can start with this and then chain it into some of these other effects, you know, that do extra ping damage or, you know, increased damage. Just good stuff. You can chain together a really, really strong turn here. And so we are running, also just has Goarin on it too, just inherently, just cause why not? So we are running the reds, we're running the yellows, which is a 0 for 2, and we're running the blues, which is a 0 for 1. Still really good. And it counts itself. So even if this deals damage, it'll come in for 2 damage instead. So Ball Lightning, fantastic. We're also running Lightning Surge, another 0 for 4 with Goarin. We have a lot of 0 for 4s with Goarin. So we have a lot of great breakpoints here. If you're familiar with like a Cheerios Briar style deck, it functions a little bit like that. Not quite, but a little bit. So this is a 0 for 4, and if it's played from the arsenal, it gains Goarin. So this is a great card that you want to play from arsenal. You can have a huge turn if you arsenal this card, flip it up with Lexi, give your next thing Goarin, and then play something else that has, you know, give it Goarin with Lexi's ability. Then you can play the Lightning Surge from your arsenal and just kind of continue the pain train. Just lots of ways to go wide with this deck. Also, these are lightning cards, so they're good for fusion. So we're running the red, 0 for 4. We're also running the blue, which I think is just a great value just to pitch. But it's still a 0 for 2 with Goarin, which isn't too bad, and you can use it to fuse. We're running Heaven's Claws, just once again a great card to fuse with. It's a 1 for 5, blocks for 3. 1 for 5 is a great rate, and it's a lightning card that you can fuse with. We are running the red, which is 1 for 5, and the blue, which is a 1 for 3. Once again, pitches for 3, blocks for 3. You can use it to fuse. Just a great card. And then finally, we have a full playset of Electrifies, which is another great card. This is a 1-cost lightning action. They block for 2. The next attack action card, or the next time an attack action card hits a hero this turn, it deals 3 damage to them. If Electrify is played from the arsenal, you get to draw a card. So this is a great card, one of the best ones to arsenal at the end of your turn. And we're running a full set. So the red deals 3 damage, the yellow deals 2, and the blue deals 1. And all of these damage effects are amplified by all of the other card effects that we do that amplify damage, because it says the next time an attack action card hits a hero this turn, it deals 3 damage to them. So the Electrify is not dealing damage, it's the card that hits that deals the amplified damage, or deals the extra damage. So that's fantastic. So yeah, you can deal an absurd amount of damage with these. And once again, having them in your arsenal is so good because you can flip them up with Lexi, give your next thing Goarin, attack with it. You can, you know, play the Electrify and draw the card, and it's just so good. So that's kind of how this deck functions. It's not too difficult to pilot. There are some sequencing things, and you know which order you want to play them into. You know, if you want to flip up your card first to give your next attack a Goarin. So I do believe Lexi specifies that it is a attack this turn. So your next attack this turn gains Goarin. So it doesn't, it would not waste the effect if you played Electrify, right? So you could flip up the Electrify, give your next attack Goarin, play the Electrify, and then maybe, I don't know, play your Frazzle, right? Play your Frazzle and you fuse it and it has Goarin, right? Because from Lexi's ability. So yeah, really like this deck. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it for anyone who wants to play Ranger in Commoner. Easy to play, easy to build, and a lot of fun. So thank you for joining me on my Commoner Ranger TED Talk. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time.